Hi. So what we're going to talk about in this video is our body's response to stress. I really want you to understand exactly how that stress is impacting our overall health, our gut health, and fueling part of the process. All right? Because I feel like once you can understand that, then you'll understand the importance of managing that stress. So let's dive in. The body's response to stress. When we encounter a stressful situation, that is going to be sensed or picked up by a part of the brain that's called the amygdala. The amygdala is then going to have two jobs. One, it is going to activate the sympathetic nervous system. That's our fight, flight, and freeze, that adrenaline rush that we often get in a stressful situation. The next part is a whole cascade of stress hormones are released by what is called the HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. So this will have an impact on our overall hormones. The idea in a stressful situation is to mobilize energy into the bloodstream. So that's the job of cortisol. So let's break this down. Fight, flight, and freeze, that sympathetic nervous system response, it's a normal response. It's there for a reason. In stressful situations, we need to be able to take fight, to get ready to fight if we have an intruder in our home, or take flight if someone's chasing us. We have to have these physiological responses in order as protective mechanisms, all right? So it's a normal response. When you hear that like bad news and you get that pit in the bottom of your stomach, that is due to a halt in digestion. It's not a time for digestion and absorption of nutrients. It's a time to get out of whatever is going on. You'll notice an increased breath rate, increased heart rate. You'll get that clammy, sweaty feel going on. Your pupils dilate so that you can see better. And then this is the HPA axis. So the most important thing that I want you to understand about this is not the whole hormone cascade, but rather you can see here that negative feedback loop. And on that negative feedback loop, that is what is going to tell your body once you're out of the stress to calm back down. But my question to you is, what happens when you're in a chronic stress situation where maybe you've got a lot of stress going on at work and you're getting hit time and time and time again by low levels of chronic stress, but you're not taking flight, you're not fighting to actually utilize the glucose that was just dumped into the bloodstream. You're freezing time and time and time again all day long. So how is that then going to impact your overall health? And the way that that's going to happen is we're going to get what's called HPA axis dysregulation. So, adrenal burnout, some will say. I don't necessarily love that word, but you're going to get this persistent epinephrine surging into the bloodstream, which is eventually going to cause damage to your blood vessels. You're going to have elevated blood pressure, increased risk for heart attack and stroke, because the blood, we only have so much blood volume within our body. So your larger muscles that are responsible for running and fighting, they need that increased oxygenation in order to produce energy to get us out of that situation. So what the body does is it draws the blood from the gut and it pushes it to those larger muscles. So now we're getting blood that's coming away from the gut all the time. And that's when we'll start to see, if you have an irritation, the gut heals rather quickly. Those cells are turning over very quickly. So really, there is no reason that we should develop ulcers unless we're chronically bringing blood that has our healing cells in it away from the gut on a very consistent basis. This will eventually lead to leaky gut or other type of gut disturbances, like I talked about, ulcers, food sensitivities, things like that. So that cortisol is the stress hormone. It's what will mobilize glucose into the bloodstream, because we need that glucose to be able to use to produce energy quickly. But then we don't use the energy, we don't use the glucose. So then the body goes, it's trying to get back into a homeostasis or a state of balance. And so because we're constantly getting hit and having to mobilize this energy or the glucose quickly, your body will say, hey, let's store this around the visceral fat or the abdominal fat. Let's store it there, because that's the place where we can access it the quickest for the next time that we need it. So this gut-brain connection, the gut-brain axis, we know that it's a very powerful thing. So we as human beings can anticipate stress and have a direct influence on all of our systems. So 70% of our immune system comes from our gut. 70. So when we have these imbalances with the gut, it can then influence our neurotransmitters, which neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, that are responsible for the stress hormones. We can have an impact there. So now all of a sudden we're getting these mood imbalances as well. So they're now finding that with research that it's not, so they used to think it was stress, anxiety, depression that created gut issues. But now, as we start to unfold more information about the microbiome and this balance of good bacteria and the job of them, we're starting to recognize that actually it can be gut disturbances that then influence our overall mental health. So our cortisol levels should travel the path of the sun or the circadian rhythm. So they will be highest about 30 minutes. They should be highest about 30 minutes after we wake. We have what's called a cortisol awakening response. And so when you open your eyes, then your cortisol is released at its highest level from the adrenals, and then it begins to taper as the day goes, and it's lowest at night. And here you can see that there are many chronic diseases that are affiliated with either high or low cortisol levels. So I'm going to save this for part 2, and we will then dive into how we can actually begin to stop that stress response, different tools and techniques that we can use throughout the day in order to begin making those changes.